What if the very thing making you feel informed is actually clouding your mind? What if the search for life hacks is not speeding you up, but slowly dismantling your clarity? And what if the greatest upgrade isn't out there, but in the silence you keep avoiding? We are living in a world constantly buzzing with noise, an information storm that never lets up. Eyes locked on screens, ears flooded with content, and minds trapped in a loop of endless input. Everyone is scrambling for the next big secret, the productivity hack, the mental shortcut, the elite edge. But according to the ancient Stoics, transformation doesn't come from adding more. It begins when you strip things away. There's no shortcut to rewiring your mind. No downloadable upgrade. Instead, the path leads backward, back to yourself. As Epictetus wisely put it, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. It's not the chaos around us that breaks us, but our interpretation of it. True wisdom lies not in collecting more data, but in how we choose to process and apply it. When you stop fighting yourself, when you stop reacting, stop racing to keep up, something radical happens. The mind, for the first time, begins to function at its true capacity. And here's the paradox, becoming 50% smarter doesn't come from learning more. It comes from subtracting. Less noise. Fewer distractions. Fewer shallow inputs, but deeper, more intentional thoughts. In stillness, your brain doesn't go numb, it becomes a blade, honed to precision. You become not just intelligent, but dangerous. Because someone who is awake in a sleeping world, that person is a threat to the norm. So, ask yourself, are you ready to reclaim your focus? To stop chasing upgrades and instead return to the source, yourself? If so, leave a comment below, I'm ready. And now, let's dive into the very first obstacle. Distraction. Not ignorance. Not laziness. But distraction. That is the true enemy of intelligence. Let's explore why distraction is far more dangerous than we think, and how it silently robs us of the clarity we desperately seek. In a world drowning in distraction, we don't need more noise, we need more silence. Because in stillness, we remember what the noise made us forget, that the mind already knows what it needs. What we're truly missing isn't information. It's silence, the kind of deep, undisturbed stillness that quietly reveals something profound. You've always been intelligent. The clarity you're chasing in books, in videos, in external voices, it's been inside you this entire time, just buried beneath layers of noise and knee-jerk reactions. Think of those who truly master themselves. The warrior who meditates before stepping onto the battlefield. The philosopher who doesn't rush to write, but waits, still and silent, until the truth emerges. The monk who remains unmoved even as the world around him spins in chaos. They aren't obsessed with speed, or flooded by constant stimulation. They don't fill silence with unnecessary words. Yet their presence feels sharper, deeper. Their vision, clearer. Why? Because they're rooted in stillness. And that kind of stillness is the most powerful brain hack the digital age is quietly stealing from you. Stillness isn't weakness. It's not avoidance. It's power. It's self-control. It's the quiet decision to hold your ground, in a world that wants you scattered. When you can sit still, truly still, for just 5 minutes, without being dragged around by your thoughts, emotions, or the itch to check a screen, you begin unlocking something rare. A strength that doesn't need to flex. A presence that doesn't need to prove anything. It's quiet, but it's formidable. Like the surface of a lake untouched by wind, still, but deep. In that state, your awareness sharpens. You feel the rise and fall of your breath. You begin to notice the smallest sounds, the subtle tension in someone's eyes, the truth behind their words. Because while most people are sprinting through life, only noticing the surface, those who practice stillness begin to see the essence. And that, ironically, is what makes you dangerous in a completely different way. In a society obsessed with multitasking and constant motion, you choose slowness, depth, and clarity. While others react, you observe. While others speak, you listen. While others chase noise, you choose silence. And from that place, you don't just become more intelligent. You become unshakable. Because distraction didn't steal your potential. It only made you forget that your strength, your wisdom, and your depth were already there, just waiting beneath the silence. Now, let's explore something even more profound: how to become dangerous, without ever raising your voice or your fists. Shall we begin? Stillness sharpens your senses. But what happens when you combine that stillness with awareness, restraint, and mastery of self? You don't just become wise, you become quietly dangerous. This kind of power isn't handed to you, through degrees or granted by some external authority. It's forged, through discipline, reflection, and training, like an inner warrior sharpening their mind instead of a sword. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's not just a thought, it's a blueprint. A way of living with deliberate clarity and control. While violence is impulsive, reactive, even primal, Stoic danger is refined. It's the mark of someone who fully understands cause and effect, who knows that a single glance, a deep breath, or even one careless word, can shift the outcome of an entire situation. When you live with precision, your every move begins to carry weight. You're no longer just another pawn on the board. You're the one standing above it, seeing patterns, anticipating outcomes, and moving only when it matters most. But most people can't see this. Why? Because they're only half awake, eyes open, but minds dulled by overstimulation and speed. Noise has numbed their intuition. Hurry has eroded their clarity. And this is where the true danger of the Stoic begins. Not in physical strength. Not in loud commands. But in perception. In the ability to hear what others ignore. To see opportunities others trample over. This is intelligence honed into a blade, not to cut flesh, but to pierce through illusions. Marcus Aurelius embodied this perfectly. A Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, he commanded vast armies, yet chose stillness over rage, awareness over impulse. Even on the battlefield, he penned meditations instead of orders. When rebellion stirred among his troops, he didn't respond in haste. He paused. Watched. Waited. And when he acted, his response was cold, fair, and razor-sharp. That's what made him feared, not brutality, but clarity. He didn't overpower others. He understood them. And that was far more dangerous. To become dangerous isn't to harm others. It's to become unshakable, someone whose mind cannot be manipulated, who chooses their words like a surgeon wields a scalpel, cold, precise, and efficient. You move with purpose. Breathe with intention. And you act only when the time is right. That level of presence can only be trained, through consistent self-awareness, and the discipline to pause before reacting. Soon, you begin to live not reactively, but strategically. Not through tricks, but through deep understanding of how you, and the world around you, truly work. Because observation isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's the very foundation of wisdom. If you don't see clearly, how can you ever know what to do? In the next part, we'll explore how true power isn't found in how much you say, but in how much you choose not to say. Ready to go deeper? Once you learn to observe clearly, you stop falling for the obvious. And when you stop reacting on impulse, that's when real power begins to emerge. If you can't truly see, then you can't truly choose. That's why the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest voice, or the biggest ego, it's the quiet one. The one who's paying attention. Watching every move. The one who sees the ending before the game even starts. And this brings us to a powerful, and paradoxical, idea. What happens when your reactions no longer control you? When you can feel emotion rising inside, but choose not to let it rule you? Maybe, just maybe, the moment you do nothing, is the moment everything begins to change. Don't overlook it. Number 3, stop reacting. Start responding. For legendary UFC fighter Georges St-Pierre, his fiercest battles didn't happen inside the ring. They happened in his own mind. Before a fight, fear would flood his body. Panic would shake him. Even before the first punch, his clarity would vanish, replaced by trembling nerves. But what made St-Pierre one of the greatest fighters in history, wasn't just how he used his fists. It was how he used his breath. Every time fear crushed him, he returned to the basics: slow, steady, conscious breathing. He trained like a monk with a fighter's spirit. From meditation to traditional martial arts techniques, he learned to stay calm under pressure, whether facing a roaring opponent, or standing in front of flashing cameras. And once he controlled his breath, he controlled himself. No more being tossed around by fear. No more emotional outbursts. Georges stopped reacting. He responded. And that mindset, calm, clear, composed, became the foundation of a true champion. Stoic philosophy may not teach breathwork directly, but it echoes the same core truth. Breath gives us control. It gives us space. It gives us the chance to choose our response instead of being hijacked by raw emotion. Stop reacting, start responding isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a radical shift, from living on emotional autopilot to living, with presence and precision. Think about it. In moments of pressure, a heated argument, a traffic jam, a message that triggers you, what do most people do? They explode. Their faces flush, voices rise, hands shake. They don't choose, they react. It's not thought. It's survival reflex. But the Stoic, they breathe before they act. They slow down. They anchor. Because breath is more than air, it's the bridge between your body and your mind. And when you slow that bridge, you slow the chaos. Your nervous system shifts. Your thoughts clear. You become like a warrior, who places their hand on the sword, but doesn't draw it. Not yet. The emotions are still there, but they no longer sweep you away. You see. You hear. You choose. And here's the secret, this kind of control doesn't start in the middle of a fight. It's built in quiet, ordinary moments, when nothing is at stake. That's where real mastery begins. Next, we'll explore how to sharpen this awareness even further, and how the smallest observations can lead to the greatest clarity. Shall we continue? Breath is not just survival. It's how we reclaim control, moment by moment. And the more we train it in stillness, the more prepared we are when the storm hits. Like a swordsman practicing slow, precise cuts long before battle, repeating each motion 1,000 times with no enemy in sight, you must train your breath daily. Not in crisis, but in the mundane. While walking to work. While rinsing dishes. While waiting at a red light. Because when pressure comes, there's no time to learn how to breathe. You only have what you've already practiced. And this kind of breath work isn't about controlling or suppressing what you feel. It's about attuning. Breathing as if you're in quiet, respectful conversation with your own body. Not commanding it, but listening to it. Your brain listens to your breath more than your logic. If your breath is steady, your thoughts clear. If it's erratic, your heart races. Your mind floods. Clarity disappears. But sometimes, just one conscious breath. In traffic. In the middle of a heated argument. Or in the quiet pain of heartbreak. That one breath can bring you back to center. Those who live in constant reactivity are always one step behind. They're shaped by the world around them. But those who pause, who observe, who choose before acting, they shape the world around them. This kind of mastery doesn't need to shout. It radiates. Like a quiet field of gravity others can feel, even if they don't know why. It's calm. It's steady. It's dangerously composed. And over time, this kind of breathing, this daily discipline, rewires who you are. You're no longer someone pulled and twisted by emotions. You ride your emotions like a skilled surfer rides a wave, balanced, unshaken. You don't blurt out thoughts you'll regret. You wait. And when the moment is right, you speak with precision. Breathing like this becomes a way of living. Not flashy. Not loud. But powerful. It sharpens your awareness. Not because you've absorbed more knowledge, but because you finally see. And sometimes, that's the most dangerous thing about you. Not your words. Not your strength. But the fact that you're not easy to shake. Not easy to manipulate. Not easy to move. Because it only takes one breath to anchor yourself. But it must be real. Number 4, self-mastery and stillness in chaos. We live in a world that never pauses. Where messages demand replies, notifications demand your attention, and expectations fly in from all directions. In that world, the ability to sit still and not react immediately is nothing short of a superpower. But don't confuse this with passivity. Stillness is not weakness. It's the most deliberate act you can take in a reactionary world. It's how you master yourself. And this stillness isn't just about outer silence. It's about creating space inside. A space where you can observe every thought, every impulse, and decide, consciously, what deserves your energy. From this internal space, true intelligence emerges. Not from how much you know, but from how well you see. Because someone who's never trained themselves to pause will fall for every loud thought. And even worse, for the subtle, sneaky ones. Next, we'll explore why slowing down doesn't mean falling behind, and how the deepest minds don't rush to speak, but wait, watch, and strike with precision. Shall we go on? Stillness sharpens the mind. But when stillness meets awareness, something even more powerful is born, the ability to choose your thoughts, rather than be chosen by them. Weak thoughts rarely sound threatening. They often show up wearing familiar, reasonable voices. I can't. It's probably not good enough. I need more time. They appear logical. Safe. Even protective. But if you trace their roots, they all come from the same place, fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress these emotions. It doesn't preach emotional numbness. Instead, it teaches you not to be ruled by them. Because once you begin to observe your thoughts, without identifying with them, you make a subtle but powerful shift. You stop being led, and start leading. And someone who leads their own mind is very, very hard to manipulate. Take Nelson Mandela, a living example of this inner strength. Imprisoned for 27 years under apartheid, stripped of his freedom, cut off from the outside world, he faced the kind of injustice and isolation that can twist even the strongest hearts into hatred. But Mandela didn't let bitterness take hold. He practiced self-observation daily, refusing to let anger and vengeance dominate his thoughts. After his release, he said something unforgettable. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. His stillness didn't make him passive. It made him unshakable. It gave him the strength to unite a fractured nation, not through force, but through composure, intention, and presence. He didn't react. He chose. And that's the exact battlefield most of us face today. Not the world out there, but the world inside our own minds. Every day, hundreds, sometimes thousands, of thoughts flood in. Most of them meaningless. Many of them draining. Yet we react to them as if they were urgent, as if every thought deserves a response. But here's the truth. You don't need to silence your mind to find peace. You only need one skill, the pause between thought and reaction. In that split second, that space, you move from being a slave to instinct, to becoming the observer. And from that observer's seat, you finally act not out of habit or pressure, but out of choice. Imagine sitting still for just 5 minutes each day, doing nothing but watching your thoughts pass by. No judgment. No fixing. Just observation. That's not simply meditation. That's mental martial arts training. Like a swordsman sharpening their blade in silence. You're training your attention. Your ability to remain centered in chaos. And over time, something profound begins to reveal itself. You've always been strong. You were just too distracted to notice. Because what makes you dangerous isn't a loud voice, flashy words, or how much you know. It's the quiet composure in the face of mental noise. It's being calm when the world is screaming. It's acting, while everyone else is still reacting. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment below. Let us know, what did you notice when you simply paused and watched your thoughts? Up next, we'll dive deeper into how presence, true presence, can give you an advantage more powerful than intelligence or speed, the ability to see through the chaos. Are you ready? When your thoughts no longer control you, and your emotions no longer pull you off course, something powerful happens. You don't just exist, you become fully present. You're no longer just alive. You are aware. Fully grounded. Fully present. And that presence, quiet, unhurried, anchored, is a rare form of power. Think of Jesus in the wilderness. 40 days of silence. No weapons. No arguments. Just stillness, prayer, and spiritual depth so profound, that even the tempter had no choice but to retreat. That is the timeless proof of an ancient truth. When your inner world is steady, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence speaks for itself. Before we continue, may I ask something small? If what you've learned so far has sparked even the slightest shift in you, a moment of calm, a quiet realization, a soft smile, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider clicking that too. Because every like, every subscribe, helps tell YouTube this content matters. And that small action could help this message reach someone who's lost in noise. Someone who just needs a little clarity. A little peace. A little light. Let's share that together, this journey of wisdom, stillness, and self-mastery. Because we've only reached the halfway point. What's coming next? It's where resilience is no longer about surviving, but thriving with grace. Where strength is forged like steel, but carries stillness like water. Stay with me. Number 6, mental toughness. In today's noisy, hyperreactive world, tension is often mistaken for intelligence. People confuse speed with efficiency. They admire those who move fast, even when the direction is unclear. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. A sharp mind does not arise from pressure or panic. It is born in stillness. Not from stuffing your brain with more knowledge, but from seeing clearly. And to see clearly, you must pause. You must train yourself to observe honestly, without rushing to interpret, judge, or react. Because real observation is not natural. It is a skill. And like any skill, it requires practice, and stillness. When your inner world stops spinning, the outer world becomes clear, like calm water reflecting the truth back at you. That is when real wisdom emerges. Not memory tricks. Not cleverness. But insight, the kind that cuts through illusion. The kind most people miss because their attention is constantly being pulled away. And once again, the key is something simple but profound, your breath. Before your very first conscious thought each morning, there is breath. Before your fears form, before your plans rush in, your breath is already there. A silent rhythm guiding you through life. Here's what's fascinating. Breath is the only bodily function that you can control at will, or leave to the unconscious. And when you choose to slow it down, to deepen it, you're doing more than just altering a pattern. You're sending a message, not with words, but with your nervous system. You're telling your body, we're safe. We're steady. There's no reason to panic. And from that place, strength returns. Clarity returns. Composure is no longer an act, it's your default state. Up next, we'll explore how this inner calm transforms into decisive power, and how to stay grounded even when the world around you is shaking. Let's keep going. When breath is mastered, the chaos outside no longer controls you. It softens. It quiets. And from that silence, clarity is born. With just a breath, the mind begins to calm. Emotions soften. And clarity, the kind we often search the world for, returns home. One of the greatest examples of this truth is Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor revered as the philosopher king. He didn't rule during peace. His reign was marked by endless wars, collapsing alliances, and waves of plague. And yet, through it all, he remained present. Clear-minded. Unshaken. How does a man face pressure from every direction, power, disease, rebellion, without breaking? The answer lies in the quiet pages of Meditations, the journal he wrote for no audience but himself. Among all the thoughts he penned, some were the simplest. Inhale. Exhale. Return to the present. To Marcus, breath was the anchor, his way of grounding himself amidst political storms, moral temptations, and fear-driven decisions. It was his line back to center. The practice that held him steady when everything else tried to pull him off course. That breath didn't just calm him, it enabled wisdom. Few leaders in history have led with such inner stillness. And it wasn't emotion or urgency that gave him power. It was the choice to pause before reacting. To act with thoughtfulness rather than impulse. Mental toughness, as Stoicism teaches, isn't about tightening your grip. It's not about clenching your jaw or pushing through with raw will. It's the quiet courage to hold your ground in the storm. To resist the temptation to flinch. To respond with patience and awareness rather than speed. And all of it begins with the breath. You can memorize 100 productivity hacks. You can read shelves of self-help books. But if you cannot sit still for even 5 minutes, just you and your breath, then all that knowledge is just noise. Stillness is the foundation. Breath is the tool. And from those two, true resilience is forged. Number 7, training the mind like a muscle. Joe entered the meeting room without fanfare. He didn't make a scene. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush to speak. Instead, he observed. He noticed the darting eyes of his superior. The slight tremor in the presenter's voice. The nervous grip of a colleague's hand on the table. No one else paid attention to these tiny details. But that moment of silence. That was the training. This is how intellectual strength is formed. Not in shouting. Not in rushing. But in quiet, focused awareness. Training the mind is, just like training a muscle. It's not about adding weight fast, it's about moving with control. The discipline of presence, of deliberate attention in each moment, is the mental equivalent of lifting with precision. And it all begins with one overlooked skill, the pause. In a world obsessed with speed, pausing, even for 1 second, before replying, judging, or acting, is a quiet revolution. Because that pause, that's the moment your mind stops reacting and starts observing. The exact moment where instinct ends and intelligence begins. Just like muscles grow through controlled movement. Your mind sharpens when you learn to manage your psychological reflexes. To resist the urge to react instantly, and instead stay present long enough to see. But let's be clear. Stillness is not an action. It's not doing nothing. It's a state of active calm. A readiness to respond, with precision and grace. Imagine a well-trained radar. Not frantic, but finely tuned. Scanning for emotional shifts, reading tension, interpreting space, without rush, without noise. A seasoned salesperson does exactly this. They don't just listen to what's said. They pay attention to what's unsaid. To the slight hesitation. The tiny break in tone. To eyes that say something the words try to hide. That is awareness. That is intelligence trained like a muscle. In the next part, we'll explore how to turn this awareness into action, how to lead not through dominance, but through presence and timing. Let's keep going. When the mind is trained to pause, observe, and stay present, it doesn't just grow stronger. It starts to see what others miss. In that stillness, you're not checked out, you're more engaged than ever. But not through frantic activity or constant talking. You act with a kind of sharpness that cuts deeper than words ever could. This silent awareness begins to reveal patterns. Invisible threads that shape human behavior, emotion, and thought. You start to notice what was always there, just beneath the surface. Like how someone avoids eye contact every time the topic of money comes up. That's not a coincidence, it's a clue. A signal. A hidden discomfort they've been carrying. Or maybe it's internal. You realize you always feel a wave of anxiety whenever someone raises their voice. And suddenly, you uncover something buried. A fear born long ago, quietly influencing how you react today. Once you see the pattern clearly, you're no longer trapped in it. You stop playing the same emotional loop. You become harder to manipulate. Less dazzled by appearances. Less vulnerable to emotional triggers. And from there, something powerful shifts. You step into a space of quiet power. There's no more need to impress. No pressure to prove. You're not performing. You're just present, and clear. Your energy speaks louder than your words. Truly grounded people don't flex through conversation. Their strength is felt in the precision of their actions. In the timing of their responses. In the way they hold themselves steady, when others shake. That is what it means to be dangerous, in the Stoic sense. Calm. Clear. Unshakable. And here's the thing. There are no shortcuts to this state. Just like someone building muscle in the gym. You have to practice, every day. Each repetition counts. But instead of lifting weights, you lift your attention. You don't need to say much. Just look more closely. Notice the slight change in a loved one's tone, when you come home late. Feel the heaviness in your body after eating too fast. Catch the subtle emotional dip, after 30 minutes of scrolling through your feed. Each of these small moments is a clue. A thread. And slowly, those threads begin to unravel the invisible forces that have been quietly shaping your life. And here's what you'll begin to realize. True intelligence doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from being here. Fully. Attuned to what's happening, not just outside, but within. You can sit in a loud crowd, and still perceive the hidden rhythm beneath the noise. You start to feel how the world moves, even in silence. Do you know why that happens? Let's move into the next part, because this is where transformation truly begins. Where the fog of autopilot starts to lift. And real clarity begins to take hold. Number 8, the brain hack begins. Awareness over autopilot. The real beginning of wisdom is simple. It's when you stop reacting unconsciously. And start observing. Like someone who has finally awakened. The moment you awaken from autopilot is the moment true transformation begins. Because now, you're no longer being moved by the world, you're learning to move through it with clarity. In today's world, most of us are wide awake, yet barely conscious. Our eyes are open, but we don't truly see. Our ears hear everything, but almost nothing registers. Life moves too fast. Too much. Too loud. Social media bombards us with content. Notifications tug at our attention every few minutes. And advertisements slip into every gap, filling the silence before we can even breathe. In this constant stimulation, the mind stops functioning, like a sharp tool. Instead, it becomes more like a cluttered room. Everything is present, but nothing is in order. No space. No clarity. We're told that intelligence means knowing more. Accessing more. Responding faster. But the truth is the exact opposite. A flooded mind can't see through anything. When you're pulled in 10 directions, at once by distractions, your capacity for deep thought drops to zero. Your brain can no longer focus. Because wisdom doesn't grow in chaos. It grows in stillness. Only when the noise is cut. When distractions fade. Can your brain concentrate its full power on a single point? And that's when the miracle happens. You begin to see. Picture a lake. When the surface is disturbed, all you notice are ripples. But when the water calms, it becomes a mirror. You see not just the sky above, but the plants below, the lake bed, even your own reflection. The human mind works the same way. When it's constantly stimulated, your inner world becomes murky. You can't see yourself clearly, let alone understand the world around you. But when the noise settles, the truth starts to rise to the surface. Your blind spots. Your buried fears. Your potential. Your unconscious habits. They all begin to reveal themselves. As if you're seeing them, for the very first time. But here's the challenge. Stillness is uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. They fill the silence with music, videos, endless scrolling, or tasks that feel urgent. Sitting still for just 5 minutes. It can feel unbearable at first. The mind itches for distraction. It gets restless. But if you stay, if you sit quietly, breathe deeply, and do nothing, just for a little while, something remarkable begins to unfold. The noise in your head begins to fade. And suddenly, you realize something powerful. You are not your thoughts. Thoughts come and go. Some loud. Some strange. Some painful. But you, the one observing, remain. That is the moment you begin to awaken. You stop reacting by instinct. You don't snap the moment you're criticized. You don't panic when life veers off course. You stop letting emotion dictate your every move. You become the observer. Calm. Grounded. Quietly powerful. Not easily shaken. Not easily provoked. Imagine a fighter in the ring. The crowd roars, but he doesn't flinch. He watches. Waits. Reads every movement. And when he strikes, it's not a flurry of blows. Just one, perfectly timed, and it lands. That is the power of stillness. And you've seen this in real life, too. The greatest leaders are rarely the ones who speak the most. They're the ones who observe the entire room in silence. And then offer one single insight. That shifts everything. And that's where we're heading next, to the final stage of this journey. Where your stillness becomes strategy. And your presence becomes a force that moves the world without noise. Let's continue. In a noisy world, stillness isn't just a pause, it's a competitive advantage. And those who master it don't just learn faster, they live smarter. The best learners aren't the ones with the longest notes, or the most colorful planners. They're the ones who focus deeply. Who don't get easily pulled by distractions. Who can hear something once, and carry it with them? That's the power of stillness. It builds a quiet strength that others can feel, even before you speak. When you master stillness, life begins to reorganize itself around clarity. You see more clearly. You do less, but what you do carries more impact. The noise fades. Decisions become simpler. Focus returns, naturally. And learning accelerates, because your mind is no longer wading through mental clutter. Yes, emotions still come. But they no longer lead you. You stop fighting life. You start to flow with it. Flexible, yet grounded. Steady, yet responsive. Let me ask you. Have you ever truly tried sitting in complete stillness for just 5 minutes, doing absolutely nothing? No music. No scrolling. No planning. Just being. Try it. Then come back and share your experience in the comments. Were you fully awake, or still running on autopilot? And if this journey has spoken to you, don't forget to follow, so you don't miss more content on building a sharp mind from the inside out. Number 9, the upgrade begins. There is a pivotal moment on the path of personal development that most people overlook. It's not when you read another book. It's not in gaining one more certificate, learning a new skill, or spending money on another course. No, this turning point arrives the moment you realize something much deeper. That presence, the ability to remain fully in the now, is the true foundation of intelligence, strength, and growth. From this point forward, upgrading your mind is no longer about speed or information. It's about stillness. Mastery of what's inside. Intelligence doesn't thrive in noise. It emerges in the moments when we finally stop. Observe. Reflect. And begin to see the subtle things we normally overlook. That's when the shift happens. When you learn to step outside yourself and witness your own behavior. As if you're watching someone else perform on a stage. A truly intelligent person isn't the one constantly thinking. It's the one who knows which thoughts are worth thinking. They don't act on impulse. They don't let fear or anger steer the wheel. They wait until the mind clears. Until the truth rises. Until action becomes wisdom. They recognize that noise, anxiety, overthinking, judgment, comparison is not a sign of productivity. It's a signal of an untrained mind. And presence. Real, sustained presence is not about forcing yourself to focus. It is a skill. A strength. Cultivated in silence. Through breath. Through stillness. When you sit in silence and feel your breath rising, falling, you're no longer chasing thoughts. You're no longer resisting them either. You're simply there. Steady. Centered. Watching. Awake. This is where your real upgrade begins, not in rushing forward, but in slowing down enough to finally meet yourself. Stillness isn't the end. It's the beginning of a sharper mind, a quieter strength, and a clearer path forward. And that is the greatest advantage in a distracted world. Once you begin to observe instead of react, your life no longer runs on impulse. It starts running on intention. From that moment on, your actions no longer come from emotional reflex. They come from conscious will. Deliberate. Thoughtful. Rooted. And that's when everything begins to change. Your movements become fewer, but more powerful. Your decisions become quieter, but more impactful. You stop being dragged by the rush of the world. Instead, you move with calm authority, each step chosen with clarity and inner peace. This isn't just philosophy. It's practiced every day in high-stakes professions. By surgeons, pilots, and elite negotiators. These individuals don't have the luxury of emotional reactions. One impulsive choice can cost a life, end a mission, or break trust. So what do? They pause. Right before making a critical decision, they often go silent, for just a few seconds. Not because they doubt themselves, but because they are checking within. They ensure they're not acting from fear. Not from ego. But from presence. Awareness. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be a surgeon or a monk to apply this. You can do it in everyday life. Before you hit send on that angry message. Before you bite back at an insult. Pause. Breathe. Observe the emotion within you, like a cloud drifting across the sky. You'll quickly realize. Most of what you're about to do is unnecessary. Because the mind, it's built to generate thoughts, constantly, endlessly. But you are not those thoughts. You are the one watching. And when you grasp this, not as a theory but as a lived experience, you begin to step into a rare and powerful state. A state of true mastery. You're no longer at the mercy of your moods. You no longer respond from fear, habit, or judgment. You respond from clarity. And that clarity is true intelligence. When you act from stillness, you become dangerous. Not in the sense of aggression, but in the sense of being unshakable. Not easily manipulated. Not easily provoked. You don't react, you choose. And every choice carries the weight of awareness behind it. That's when you stop drifting with the current. And begin to carve your own path. Each step. Each breath. Each action, intentional. The real upgrade doesn't begin from the outside. It begins the moment you sit down. Go still. Look within. And never turn away again. Wisdom isn't about knowing more. It's about seeing clearly. When your mind is calm, the truth is simple. Everything becomes clear. You make decisions faster, with more accuracy. You don't get swept up in the crowd. And that is what makes you dangerous, in the Stoic sense. Formidable. Unmoved. Grounded in presence. That's why warriors meditate before battle. Why Zen masters sit before teaching. Why philosophers pause before speaking. Because they all understand the same thing. True power comes from inner control. How about you? Can you sit still for 5 minutes? Without reaching for your phone? If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, and share your experience with stillness. And if this message resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need this clarity. And subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because your next video is waiting. And trust me, it builds on everything you've just discovered. Stay calm. Stay clear. And I'll see you there.